Welcome to Rimshots with Sean right here. Eastlink Community TV. Hope you enjoyed the hockey game. I don't know who was playing. I'm here with one of my favorite people who I get to play with every so often, Mr. Leith Fleming-Smith. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
So we caught Leith. It was a little tough, man. You've been out doing a lot of stuff. Some pictures from Nunavut.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody what you're up to when you're up there?
Sure. Well, I was up with Crash Test Dummies. We were playing at the Kitikmeot trade show, and it was. First night was for the trade show people, and it was a blast. It was a party. The second night was a free show for the community. It was very special. People brought their children. It was wonderful.
Actually, I didn't know that. That's very cool. So you said it was a last minute thing, like you found it 11 days out.
Yeah, it came about, and we all made it work. We got together. Multiple flights later, we got up there. It was an incredible experience.
And we'll get into that in a little bit because people, the travel part of music is, everybody thinks it's glamorous and it's not so much when you do it, but
no.
So,
not always.
No, for sure. So some people are going, yes, I know Lee. Some people are going, I recognize that guy. You might not recognize him because he's wearing contacts today.
Using glasses.
If there's a keyboard player in the city that needs to be called, you're literally playing with bucket full of different people. Why don't you just rhyme off who you're currently playing with?
Well, it's when I'm on the road, there's Crash Test Dummies, there's Matt Mays, David Miles, Dave Sampson. I play around town with The Frequency, Maximum Overdrive, and there's always an assorted cast of characters who I hop in and out of playing music with. But that's for me what I love, is the diversity of it all.
And the thing is, if you've ever seen Leith's a guy who, funny story. So we were in the studio just shortly from where we're sitting. I think over there.
Yeah.
You're doing a solo for Michelle Ryder's first tune.
Yes.
There's 3 or 4 of us in there. It was Charles, Michelle, Kyle, me, you. And you're doing the solo like I've seen you do it like in front of 10,000 people. It was just like you one way to rock in terms of how you act. Let's talk about that a little bit because there's no false stuff. I mean, that's just who you are.
Well, and that's the thing. I'll always give it everything I've got, no matter who's out there in the crowd. I've done shows for bar staff. I've done shows for, on the way to 30,000 people, and I approach it all the same way. You just open yourself up to what you're doing, and if you do that, music finds its own groove. It just flows. Miss
Ryder always says you channel music, and that's how your vibe happens. I mean, I get to see it every so often on stage, and it's fun because you can always tell. It's almost like everybody knows you're going to solo, because if we're playing like the Ellis, for example, everybody comes up to the front of the stage and they're all looking at Leith, and away he goes. So do you find there's any pressure? Have you ever had somebody that, because and we'll get into your personality a bit, but have you ever had somebody come up and go, geez, Leith, you're a little off tonight, you weren't into it? Like, I don't see that happening. But
the only times that's happened is that it's only ever been friends of mine. If something personal in life's been going on, that certain people know me well enough to see that through everything, then that happens. But then they also know that music is actually what's giving me the fuel to get through those moments too. So it all works itself.
It does, and that's interesting because somebody that's not a musician might not understand it. I mean, music has tremendous highs, tremendous lows. The part in the middle is really where you live most of the time. But you get to deal with the top and the bottom a lot.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because I know you've gone through some stuff and what have you, but how do you typically deal with that?
Well, I find, especially if you're on the road, you have to just every day make sure that you're maintaining enough back pocket energy to get through the off stage. Because when you're on stage, that hour and a half every day, that gives enough fuel to get through almost anything. But that said, being on the road, it wears you out too. So I just have to always remember that I have a bit less energy than I think I do, and just to accommodate for that and just allow that flow in my life.
I like that term, back pocket energy, because what we do is not like a normal job, right? Like some gigs you're loading gear in, some gigs you're not loading gear in, but maybe you don't have a lot of time to sleep and you got to get the transportation to a venue.
It's always.
So you went with, just to give our viewers kind of an idea, because being a musician is easy. Your day with Crash Test Dummies would look like what?
Well, it's usually a fairly early start in the morning.
The morning,
which for a musician, is scary.
Right.
But early start in the morning, hit the road, put in several hours, and usually we've put in several hours or a couple hours the night before to get on our way to the next venue too. So a lot of travel. Then Sometimes we get to go to the hotel and chill a bit before sound check. Sometimes there's not time for that, in which case you don't actually see a hotel room till like midnight after the show. So go to the venue, sound check, and if sound check is nice and easy, which we have a wonderful crew of people, so it always flows fairly well. But then sometimes you're stuck waiting around a bit. Sometimes you can go to the hotel. There's always a lot of hurry up and wait. But that's just the nature of the business. You have to put that time in day to day when you're out traveling, because that hour and a half that you get is pure magic, and it's worth every single up, down, and sideways that the rest of the day pertains.
Well, and I'm glad you busted that out, because a lot of people think you're only playing an hour and a half. The hour and a half is great, but it's the least amount of time of your day that you're actually doing what you want to do. It's monotonous, whatever.
No, and it all has to. But what I find takes the monotonous level down is it's who you're out living those monotonous moments with.
That's a good point.
And I'm very lucky to have had the opportunity through my career to narrow down who I play with to the people that I want to be spending time with, not just the musical forces. And I'm lucky in the way that the groovy people are also the groovy musical forces, but it's important to have that personal connection.
And I wanted to cover this because I don't know, I'm not a big believer in luck. I'm a big believer in being fortunate. Mm-hmm. But the thing about you that everybody says, I've not heard one person say, Leith, you're just a guy who slides in, you're always an easy hang, you do your gig. And I'd like you to tell the audience, everybody that's a musician, why that's so important in order to continue to get gigs.
Yeah, sure.
And you don't do it as a made-up thing.
No.
That's your personality.
Well, honestly, that was my career started from the Mellotones taking me under their wing and introducing me to everybody, and they're all such angels, and everyone they work with are such angels. So the personal connection is important, because you can only truly open up musically to your full potential of playing in a group together if everyone's vibrating right together and everyone's enjoying each other's company. You could always get near that. Suppose you were just doing a pure music gig where you didn't like the people you were playing with, but like suppose it just unfolded that way. And that a lot of the industry, that's what happens sometimes. And you can still do something incredibly musical and amazing, but that magic won't be there unless you're loving the people you're with, and that is so crucial. And that's, for me, that's the center point of who I play music with. I have to be able to spend time with them and enjoy their company.
I love that. We're going to go and pay some bills. We're going to come back to Rimshots with Sean on Eastlink TV after this. Welcome back to Rimshots with Sean right here on Eastlink Community TV. I'm with Leith Fleming-Smith, and I remember one time we did a post and we put 2 M's in your name, and you were very quick. So you grew up in Hubbard's,
yes.
And I met your parents at a frequency show at Monty's. Your folks are professors, is that right?
My dad is a professor and a statistician, yes, and my mother she's a retired teacher, an artist, garden designer, many groovy things. But they're both from out west, Alberta, and Mom was born in Victoria and moved to Calgary, but so that's why I have the 1 M. It's the Alberta spelling. But in a world of East Coast Flemings with 2 M's, it can be quite a thing.
Right. We just assume we don't have.
Oh no, yeah, it's all good. But I love that I ended up on this end.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember that night, because you said your parents were going to be there. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, we got to meet Leith's parents," and they were as advertised, man. They were supportive. They had a great time. Are you an only child?
Yes, I am.
So you have a very, and I get to know this with you from getting to know you over the years. You get a very, very, very unique, special bond with your parents. They're super supportive. Yeah. You're leaving here to go to Hubbard's after this.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, because having supportive parents is very important if you want to do it.
Oh, you know what? It's they've always been supportive. Even when I thought that the music wouldn't work as a career, I was in electrical engineering, and my mom. Both my parents were very supportive of that, but my mom still was hopeful that the music would find its way. And
I have like mom.
Yeah, music, and so was my father. Like, for being such an academic, he wanted the music to work for me too. So when it started happening, they both were very happy. But they've always been a support right from the get-go, and it always it fuels the drive for everything, knowing that you've got family behind you with these these kinds of
Very
paths.
cool. And Leith even bought a house in Halifax that has a room for his parents to stay when they're in
Yeah.
town.
Oh,
How
yeah.
often does that happen?
Now and then, a little quieter these days, but they still get out to a show now and again. So I always like to facilitate when I can.
Super cool.
Yeah.
When was it? So the first time I met you was, I think, the Frequency you were playing. You jumped up on stage. You were playing with Matt, I believe, at the time. But when did you finally go, you know what, I'm going to give this a try? What year was it? How did your first year go?
So it was basically, once I got to know the Mellowtones, fall of 2012. In 2013, I started doing the odd gig in the spring because they introduced me to so many people that were the first foundation of artists that I played with, and it just started to snowball just through meeting other people, hanging out. It's the hang again, you know, and that facilitated meeting new groups of people, and it just expanded exponentially. And then I started to, you know, I was still in school at the time though, but the touring was starting to happen. I'd be writing, I switched out of engineering, I was in history, I'd be writing papers in the back of a minivan on the road. But, and then every year has been a little busier, and it's just a wonderful roller coaster of fun.
And I mean, a lot of, like, I hate to say a lot of people, but a lot of people you talk to, and there's this kind of myth that, you know, being a musician is easy. And there's an awful lot of time that you spend where you don't get to go and do fun things because you're practicing, you don't know how to play. You got to learn songs, you got to rehearse. We covered in the last segment about the fact that, you know, 7 hours on a ride to get to an hour and a half gig. How much do you still practice now? I mean, I know you're probably figuring out tunes and material quite a bit, but how much do you get to actually just sit down and bust out chops?
Well, it's every day is a little different. I always am playing an instrument at some point during the day. A lot of the time, it's instruments I don't play for a living, so I play like a guitar and bass a lot at home. Every instrument is another way to visualize music. So the more instruments you play, the more you have knowledge of how it all fits and flows together. So playing, I used to be a trumpet player as well as a keyboard player, and I still solo as if I was playing a wind instrument. You have to stop and take a breath sometimes, whereas keyboards you don't have to, but it flows musically to treat it as such. So that it all, you know, and for keyboards, I do so many gigs around town when I'm home that those are kind of my practicing. Like, and I always just try to push myself and do something a little different, even playing cover songs. Find something new to add to it.
Well, I can vouch for that.
Oh no, totally, man, and we've rode that wave together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's funny because that particular band, the Frequencies, there's an awful lot of Dion Macbeth would call it heads up hockey.
Yes,
where you just jump on the stage and, you know, hope for the best. And it works out. So, somebody's over there shuffling chairs around here where we're at. So in terms of all the gigs and stuff that you're doing, you're kind of a bit live, but you've been doing a lot of studio stuff the last bit too. How's that transition been for you? Because some people struggle with it. Like, live is one thing, a studio, you're hearing yourself as a singer.
Yeah, of course.
How's that transition work for you?
Well, that's the thing. Live, you play and it's done. You're on to the next note. You're on to the next thing. It's all a flow from start to finish. Whereas in a studio environment, it's much more, you can stop and look back and kind of reassert your viewpoint on what you're doing, and sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be bad. You can start to overthink in the studio. I find usually if I'm doing too many takes in a row, I find I'm losing the mojo. John Lord from Deep Purple used to always say, first, second take, maybe third, and if you can't do it and then, he takes a break and comes back the next day. And I totally get that, because it's easy to get a little too under the microscope sometimes, because for me personally, like live, there can be so much spontaneity, and I want to always try to carry some of that spontaneity into a studio setting. So there are links between the worlds and there are separations, but it's kind of a constantly ebbing and flowing link between them. So.
Well, and it is different because people, I think the first time you go in and you hear yourself and you think you're like all that in a bag of chips is what you used to say, and then you go like, hey. And
then you got the headphones like, what
am I playing? And I've even been in situations where I thought a certain fill worked great. And oh, what was it? So people, it's a bit of it. And then if you get a producer that's like a chops buster, that can be tough too.
It can.
Right?
It really, the producer thing too, it's like there's different sorts of settings within a studio environment. You know, you can have someone who just lets you do your thing. You can have someone who has very specific instructions. So it basically, every session is different. So
we're almost up for time on this segment, but I want to tell one funny story that we're going to pick up at the end here on Eastlink TV, and that is the story of Leith finding a $30 guitar that he took on stage, and it sounded like $1 million. We'll be back after this. Well, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean right here in Eastlink Community TV, which we got primo spot right after Friday Night Hockey, which is amazing. So just before the break, I had started the story of the $30 guitar, and it's a funny story. So
okay. Well, every now and then, the frequency, we do these wonderful jaunts to Dolan's Pub in Fredericton.
Very good.
Yeah. So we always do 3 nights there, and when you're there for the weekend, staying in the band house, you explore, you go around town, you put your life in Fredericton for a weekend, which is a wonderful thing to do.
Love it.
And I always end up going through the thrift shops and going to Value Village. You never know. I found a golf club one time, but I found a golf club in the middle of winter, as well as this jacket, actually.
Yeah.
I believe this jacket was the same, Fredericton Value Village. Anyway, one day, we had one show left, and I found for $30 this old 1970s guitar that was built for Canadian distribution through Canadian music stores back in the day. And at first I thought it was just an average cheapo guitar, of which I already own quite a few. But then I looked at it and took a gander, and I was like, actually, it's much more than what the tag would suggest. So I took it back to Dolan's, put it through the amplifier while we were having lunch, and it fired right up. So I went to Long McQuaid, got some fresh strings, spent the afternoon tweaking it, setting it up, and that night took it out to rock a little bit.
I believe we played Livewire that night with that guy.
Yeah.
Livewire with a $30 guitar. Vic Myers, we might talk about that when I get to that. The funny thing was that guitar stayed in tune better than Kyle's SG, which is just like, and I do want to mention, I guess as a follow-up to the first segment. So when we go to Fredericton, it's a lot of fun. We hit a lot of the record stores in there, used record stores. But what a cool town! You get to go to Dolan's. Barry, Mikey, Emma, the whole crew, they're great.
Angels.
Yeah, and we have a lot of fun. So anyway, Barry, that's all you're getting out of me for. So you've been playing a little bit more guitar, because I know the other night you got up and replayed.
Yeah.
So is that kind of what is it? Kind of a muse, or is that something you want to go and add to your repertoire?
Something I want to add for sure. I've had one since I was a kid, but it was the lockdowns where I really started just sitting on my couch every day and figuring out riffs, figuring out how to play, just through muscle memory passages, and it's just been so much fun. And I actually want to make, for my own project, which I want to get going at some point, I have Steinberger electric guitars, which are very small, portable electrics, beautiful little machines. I want to make a double neck with my keytar and my Steinberger guitar, so that I can play guitar rhythm and then go for a solo on the keytar.
Yeah. There's a classic picture of you. I don't know if you know who took it, but you're wearing like the rocker jacket.
Oh,
you
yeah.
got no shirt on with the keytar.
Caleb McClellan took that photo.
Amazing. It's legendary.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that so Leith and I, we've been playing a couple of years, and then we were at the Dolan's part one night, and Leith puts on a song called "Take Me Away" by Blue Oyster Cult.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, he and I find out that we've got very similar music tastes. So during the lockdown, you sit there at 3 a.m. and I look at it, and it's like an accept video that Leith sent me, or Judas Priest. So that was kind of fun that we were doing that.
I love that. That was such a source of happiness and joy to just rock out together. Sending. I love that, man.
Well, it's so funny because it's that material is just. That's what I grew up on. You kind of went back to it. You're a Uriah Heep fan.
Yeah, well, totally. I started with my parents knew stuff up to the 70s.
Right.
So I started with a Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, Edgar Winter group, ZZ Top, T-Rex, and but then I discovered the 80s on my own a little bit, and then I was just off and running.
Well, if there's ever a guy that was probably born in the wrong decade, it's this fella, because he probably schools me in some stuff too. Well, Vinnie Vincent Invasion.
Oh, yes.
Like, it was all the stuff that you were saying. It was so cool. So, what do you have coming up in the next bit season? You're not back out on the road till March, but you have some shows around town.
Yeah, I'm playing with Kyle a bit at Ale House, which will be one of my best friends. So great to be grooving with him again. And then I have a David Miles tour early March around the Maritimes. And then mid-late March, I hit the road again with Crash Test Dummies down in the southern states for a bit. And then I'm back for, I think, at the moment, it's a relatively chill April. It never seems to stay chill for long, so we will see what happens, but it's going to be fun. You know, I never mind when the schedule fills up, if it's being filled up with things that you love doing, with gigs you love playing, with people that you love playing music with. So it's always something new to look forward to. There's always something new to look forward to on the horizon, you know?
I'm going to ask you a question. There might be a little tip in here for people I don't know, because I've never asked you this before, but we talked before we started about subbing gigs out. You say you have a go-to for keyboards. I'm going to assume you get asked every now and again, you know a guitar player, you know a bass player, you know a... What, when you're going through that in your mind and you're about to refer somebody or not, what's the first thing that you think of when you drop it in?
The very first thing is everyone going to get along? Because you could have the most superstar chops player ever, and if they can't get along with the band they're playing with, the music won't work.
Did you hear that?
It's true. It's very true. It's the basis on which I set everyone I play music with. Now that said, you still have to be able to show up and do your job, but I take that as a given that if we're in this scene, you're not going to come out and disappoint, you know. So you have to be able to be a human being that is receptive to discussion, musical discussion, because everyone has to come to this together on stage. It's a unit. You can't, even if people take their time stepping out and having their moments, if you can't be a unit, it's over. You'll hear it, you'll see it, the whole vibe will reflect
That's
it.
big. And you know, I've talked to people about this before, so for some reason people just think that if they get a name, it's going to draw people, it's going to be this audience, and it's not the case, and oftentimes the names, no, I shouldn't say oftentimes, sometimes the names are a problem. Sometimes they come with a reputation, people look the other way thinking they might be the one that's going to get that name in line, and it never happens. So I'm glad that you said that, because I've been talking about that for a long time, and people are like, no, you know, it's the name, and I believe it's good person first, you know, capable musicians.
Oh yeah, especially like if you're going on tour, especially, you're going to be in a cramped minivan together, so you got to be able to vibe.
That's very, very, very true.
Yeah.
So we're just about done. We said it was going to go fast, and it did. When are you? I guess we did mention when we mentioned Matt a little bit, but quickly we got maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah.
When are you out with Matt and Adam?
So there's gigs coming in for the sub. We got the Shore Club. We've got some festivals. And so it's great. It's a wonderful speckling of rock and roll through the summer with Maze. I've got Crash Test Dummies, Dave Sampson, David Miles. It's all relatively rumble tumble all together, you know. But that for me, it's the party mix of music.
It's a spaghetti western.
Yeah, exactly. But Maze, like I've been with Maze since 2014, and every time is always a blast. So I'm looking forward to getting back out with him too.
Awesome, man. Long overdue.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for tuning in to Eastlink TV. This has been Leith Fleming-Smith. I am Sean. Go find us on YouTube. Go find us on Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. See you next week.